book lovers, it is G-Swiss here, and I'm here today to talk about some bookish buzzwords. If you didn't know, this is a 7 on Sunday topic, and I am the host of 7 on Sunday. I will link the Goodreads page down in the description where you can check it out, and you can participate in a topic in the future, or you can suggest a topic. And this week's topic, I've just wanted to do for a while, but I never actually knew what my actual bookish buzzwords were. I mean, I just took recommendations based on different social medias when it came to books, or my bookish friends. However, it took me a while to figure out what kind of books I'm actually drawn to, but like separating the person who's recommending the book to me in the process and just think for myself what I would like to see in certain books. That is how I came to the conclusion with the list that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today, and also giving you guys some examples of where I've seen them in books. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to get straight into the topic and talk about some bookish buzzwords of mine. So first of all, I want to talk about the boarding school setting. And the reason why I get excited when I hear about a boarding school setting in books is because through boarding school settings, usually there's the found family trope in there. Technically, the kids in these schools, or the teenagers or young adults in these schools rather, or these universities maybe, ones where they're actually boarding on property, a lot of the time they're not necessarily around their own family members. They essentially have to gel with the rest of the students. It depends on the kind of book that you read. If you're technically reading an academic book where there are paranormal creatures, or where it's like a magic school setting, then there's that involved. And it gets really exciting because everyone is in an environment where everybody has some sort of power, or everyone's some sort of monster. It's pretty cool. And that's why I always talk about Crave here on this channel, and that's why I like it, because it has the kind of boarding school setting that I absolutely love to see in books. And also, I mean, I could mention Vampire Academy. A lot of you guys would probably mention Harry Potter. I wouldn't say Percy Jackson is technically an example because that's more like a camp. That's still something that I absolutely loved. In the Crave instance, what I love about it is that it's like regular school. Also, they're learning about the history of paranormal creatures in this universe. That's why I always kind of recommend Crave, even though it's technically a guilty pleasure read. It's definitely a book series I picked up mostly because of its boarding school elements, not necessarily because it was compared to Twilight. That is essentially where Twilight and Crave diverge. Twilight doesn't have a boarding school setting, Crave does. And the next bookish buzzwords I want to talk about are the marriage of convenience books. I really love the idea of marriage of convenience, whether it is in a contemporary setting or whether it is in a fantasy realm or somewhere else that is out of this world. I was really delighted to see it in Roomies by Christina Lauren. The real life kind of marriage of convenience usually is an immigration romance. And the cool thing about this book is that it is an immigration romance, and the reason why I love the marriage of convenience trope so much is because I technically had a marriage of convenience. I technically had an immigration marriage, and it worked out conveniently for both Camilla and I. Definitely just as exciting when you get to read it in a romance novel. I haven't really seen many romance novels talk about immigration romances. I mean, I've heard about the movie The Proposal, which kind of also has that. I want to see more immigration romances, or I want to see more forms of marriage of conveniences in contemporary settings. But if you're looking for marriage of convenience in a contemporary setting, then Roomies is for you. Let me tell you, it is very well done, coming from someone who has had an immigration marriage themselves. Also, a big reason why I absolutely love this series is because it contains those buzzwords. I love the series all the more for it. I have had trouble with the 4th book, I do have to admit. However, I think a big part of the series that I absolutely love is the marriage of convenience trope, and also a few other elements of the story. I definitely connect with these characters, and I love this world, but I also really love that part of the story. And this book has a few more buzzwords. I will be mentioning this for another example later, so stay tuned for that. And the next bookish buzzwords that I'm going to be mentioning are gangs and underground organizations. And I'm not gonna lie, even though these books that I'm gonna bring up aren't necessarily my favorite books or favorite series as of yet, these buzzwords definitely encouraged me to pick up books like These Violent Delights and The Greenbone Saga. Both these books contain gangs and underground organizations, and the cool thing about them is that they all have loyalty. I've just personally struggled with the writing in both these books in like 2 different ways. I mean, with These Violent Delights, I wanted this to be more based on William Shakespeare's original work of Romeo and Juliet, but it's more loose. However, with this situation, I ended up reading it too fast, and I don't think that that was a good idea. I definitely want to reread this book. I've reread this book, and I've made my mind up on it. However, I love the concepts of both these books, and those buzzwords definitely played a big part in why I picked them up, and why I still kind of keep them. Like, I'm planning to continue on with this duology, and I'm planning to reread and give the Greenbone Saga a second chance, even though I've only really read the first book. I, as a reader, want to see where my loyalties lie with these gangs. I don't know whether they're gonna be my favorites, but I'm fascinated. And the next buzzwords I'm gonna bring up are ones that I only just discovered are like completely new based on a book that I'm going to be talking about. Actually, no, there are two books that I'm gonna be talking about, and there's one anticipated release that I'm really excited to pick up due to these buzzwords. These buzzwords are reality television. And I've noticed that these are buzzwords for contemporary novels for me, such as Tools of Engagement, because there's a bit of a reality TV set here, and also The Charm Offensive. These two have different reality television settings, one being a dating show, the other one being a renovation competition. And I'm also very much looking forward to Jodi McAllister's Here for the Right Reasons, which comes out in July. I'm so excited for that one. Jodi McAllister is the author of the Valentine trilogy. I've talked about that previously on my channel. It is one of my favorite book series of all time, and I'm so excited to read Here for the Right Reasons. That contemporary romance novel is also based in a Bachelor contemporary-esque setting, and I cannot wait for it. I'm really excited for it. And I've just noticed with a bunch of the contemporary romance novels that I do read, I really love the reality television-esque setting of them. As much as you feel like you get insight on reality television contestants, you don't really get as much insight as you would get in a fictionalized account of them. That's what I noticed with these two books. I felt like I got insight into these characters' lives without having to look at them through a camera lens, rather seeing them in the background of everything, seeing their family situations or their personal lives or them having a heart-to-heart with someone. I loved that so much, and sometimes I like watching reality television, but this is deeper than reality television, and that's what I like about these books. They go deeper than that. When it comes to contemporary-esque romance, I definitely have to say reality TV has made it onto my list of buzzwords. Now I'm going to mention some buzzwords once again that work well with dark fantasy, and those are the Death and the Maiden storylines. When I mention Death and the Maiden, I could be talking about Hades and Persephone, or I could be talking about kind of Beauty and the Beast, but not. Similar, but not. Essentially what Alina and the Darkling could have been, but weren't. And apparently, the Winternight trilogy includes this, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing on with this series, because personally, I cannot wait for more of it. I could also mention pretty much every single Hades and Persephone retelling I've read, like The Star Touch Queen. I recently reread that, and I absolutely loved it. Sword of Mist and Fury, A Touch of Darkness. I just also read Learn My Lesson by Katie Robert, which has like a Hades and Meg reimagining there. So yes, I do love Hades and Persephone. However, I don't just love Hades and Persephone. I like the idea of Hades and Persephone, and Death and the Maiden kind of go hand in hand with Hades and Persephone, but Hades and Persephone aren't necessarily the source of that. Death and the Maiden, I'd say, is the main source that everybody is pretty much referring to. You want to see it in more books. I wanted to see Alina and Darkling be better. I'm not necessarily endorsing the Darkling. I just personally rather the Darkling not be that manipulative, but it would have actually made for a better story if the Darkling did have some good in him, even though he's technically the embodiment of darkness. I guess that's what a bunch of people wanted, but then when people get it, they celebrate. Now the next buzzwords I'm going to mention are very specific buzzwords. They are very specific to these two titles, and I kind of want to see them done a little bit more. And I kind of want to mention them here because I feel like they're very specific book recommendations, and I just happen to love them. These books resemble the buzzwords that I'm going to mention. Those buzzwords are where there's a chosen one for a corrupt society. That's why I would recommend people read Red Winter if they read From Blood and Ash, because From Blood and Ash is very much known for Poppy being the maiden, the chosen one for this corrupt religion. But you know, so is the protagonist for Red Winter, and no one's talking about it. And the torture with reading this trope is that the protagonists in both situations have to make compromises because they are believing in the vision for the society that has been enforced onto them. You know, it sucks. However, the great thing about these stories is that they learn their own value. I really love that kind of development arc that they would go on. So yeah, there's the chosen one trope that's done every once in a while, but I kind of like this spin on it where the chosen one is not necessarily chosen to save society. I mean, they are technically chosen to save society, but for the wrong reasons and for corrupt reasons, really, because their societies end up believing in something that is either not real or just corrupt in general. That just doesn't really make any sense. For some reason, a bunch of people back it because they've been brainwashed. That is why I recommend both these series. If you don't really like the Blood and Ash series, I'd still recommend Red Winter. It's definitely different from Blood and Ash. However, the protagonist in this series definitely is put into a similar situation to Poppy, and that's why I appreciate it. I mean, other than that, it's a really cool book series with an amazing plot. And the final bookish buzzwords that I want to mention mention in this video today are interracial romances. So for this one, I brought up The Spanish Love Deception. There are definitely other interracial romances that I do want to read, like the Brown Sisters series. I am so looking forward to reading those. And a big reason why I really love interracial romances in particular is because, kind of similar to the marriage of convenience trope, I am also in an interracial marriage. I kind of love seeing the clash of cultures sometimes, but also the harmony of cultures eventually. You know, when two become one. But also, I love seeing when couples are able to work through those differences. And sometimes family can get in the way. That is a big factor in interracial romances. Sometimes it's a culture shock for both sides of the family, for both sides of the romance. I mean, that was pretty much my situation in a nutshell. So I kind of love seeing that, and that's why I loved The Spanish Love Deception so much, because it inspired me to eventually write a interracial romance myself. But also, I love seeing it in books because I can see myself represented in these books. I can see my relationship and my marriage kind of represented in these books, even though the nationalities don't resemble mine. And I don't necessarily love it because I'm saying it's diversity or it's virtue signaling or anything. It's just realistic at the end of the day. I know everybody else has their own preferences and don't mind. Like, I will still read like a regular romance between two white people who don't really have too many cultural differences, whatever. However, I appreciate it personally because I'm in an interracial marriage. I kind of love to see the representation of like someone else explaining what it would be like to be married in their culture, to be married to someone else in a different culture. I love that. I really do, because then you explore the conflicts that come with that and how the couple tends to overcome that. So I guess that's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay till the end of this video, leave me the yellow heart emoji. I don't know, I just decided to pick a random color and today I'm going with yellow. If you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers, and also I have social medias. I'm at gswizzlebooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also at Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/gswizzle. And finally, I'm at TikTok. I'm at gswizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
Started out with half and I flipped it into double. Started out with half and I flipped it into double.